look like I've been beaten black and blue. Been cupped this morning. I'm not sure if that's technically the word. I've had a sports massage session and the woman has stuck cups on my back to draw the tension out, and I look like I've been making out with a lobster. Not a lobster, that'd be weird. An octopus. Some belting bruises there. Welcome back. Today I want to talk about workflow. I've been asked a couple of times in the last few weeks about workflow and how I move data around. So I figured, given the fact that I was bruised and battered post massage session, then I'd talk through my workflow. Data workflow is really important to me. It's something that I've kind of refined in the last 18 months. It's something that I started doing. This particular way of working I started doing about 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago, something like that, and it was something that I learned from watching a Chase Jarvis video on YouTube, and it's just stuck with me pretty much ever since. And then as I've followed other YouTubers and other creators and they've done bits and pieces about how they do theirs, that's basically then what I've then brought it into my workflow. Data workflow is really important. I've done stuff before. Thankfully it wasn't paid races. It was back in the day when I was working for free and trying to build my portfolio that I have lost images because I haven't transferred the right thing at the right time and haven't stored it correctly. So data workflow is really, really important. If you're a working photographer, whether that's sports, weddings, portraits, bar, whatever, data workflow and how you transfer and move data around and how you store data is dead important. So I'm going to kind of go through it. There's a couple of things. One is, so on my 7D Mark II, I have the ability to dual shoot. So I'm always, first of all, there's redundancy in every part of my data workflow. So when I'm shooting, regardless of whether it's studio-based stuff, live action sports, whatever it might be, I'm doubling my work. I'm doubling my data at every step. So I'm either getting full-size RAW images onto a card, or I'm getting medium-sized JPEGs as a backup onto a card. So there's always redundancy. So if one of those fails, I'm okay with the others. Don't get me wrong, medium JPEGs on for big commercial work isn't ideal, but you can get away with it a lot easier than you can with having no images. And actually, 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago, I lost. Thankfully, it was only about 60 images. I literally just loaded a new CF card into my, well, not new, but I'd loaded a fresh CF card into my camera, started shooting, went to pull that card out, and then it was coming out with a data error, and I've not been able to recover those images. Thankfully, I was also dual shooting, so I've got the medium-sized JPEGs, so they're good enough for the web. They're just, there's a handful of those out the commercial shoot that won't be good enough for print. And unfortunately that's the way it goes, but that's a much better situation to be in than going, I've got nothing. So data workflow is really important. One thing I do once I finish a shoot, regardless of whether it's a live action stuff, commercial, whatever, blah blah blah, I take one of the cards, usually the one with what I would class as the main images. So if I'm shooting RAW plus JPEG, I'll take the card out that's got the RAWs on. If I'm shooting large JPEG and medium JPEG, I'll take out the one that's got the large JPEGs on. I'll take out the highest resolution image card out of my camera, and that goes in my pocket. Cameras and stuff then go back in my box, go back into my bags, everything then goes back into the car, plane, train, bus, whatever it might be, and I travel home. I separate those out for the pure fact that, touch wood, I've never had it happen, but if I have my gear nicked out of my car, I have my gear nicked on a train, I have my gear nicked on a plane, or whatever it might be, if I get separated from my gear, at least I've got my images. It's never happened. Touch wood, cross fingers, all that it never happens, but if it does, I've got my images. I've got one set of images regardless, so I will always carry cards in my pocket after a shoot. They're on my person at all times. They don't leave my person until I then get home or get to a place, hotel room, whatever it might be, where I can start backing up images. So from a kind of handy data security tip, always take your cards out of your camera after you finish the shoot, after you finish an event, after you've finished a match, whatever it might be, and separate them from your gear, because a thief, burglar, robber, whatever you want to call them, will go for the camera and they won't be bothered about the cards. And the amount of stuff you see online of, you know, wedding photographers or whatnot posting up into forums and stuff, you know, I've had my camera stolen, but if it is you, please return the card at least, because I've got the images. Hopefully that will never happen to me, but if it does, at least I've got my images. So that's quite important. So that's step one. What I then do when I get home, get to a hotel room, whatever it might be, I then start importing the images that I'm going to work on. That happens in one of two ways. If I'm doing live sports, large volumes of images, you know, be it a World Triathlon Series race where, you know, I might generate 2,000, 3,000 images for that one race. What I will do as I'm working through that event is I will be rating on my camera the ones that I think look good, purely because I'm trying to get images back out quickly to clients, and if I'm sitting there for 3 hours going through afterwards trying to work out what's best, then I'm going to slow down. So I'll rate them down to quite a lot. I'll rate them down from quite a lot, say 3,000 images, down to 200, 250, and then I've got a ballpark to work for, at which point I can then come back onto the laptop and start really kind of narrowing down that focus and get that top 50, top 75, top 100 out I want. Lots of people will say don't look on the back of camera because it isn't reliable, blah 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 blah. I 100% agree. There are times when I'll put what I think is a good image on the back of the camera onto a laptop and it won't be the same, it won't be right. But for me, my workflow is I will rate as I go so that I can see what I've got. That then becomes a smaller data transfer at the end. If I'm not particularly bothered about the images that I've not rated because they're blurry, out of focus, not good compositionally, not something that I'll use in the future, and I'm not happy with them, then what I will do is I will transfer everything off the cards onto my hard drives and just take out the rated ones. So I'll just take out the ones that I've rated out of that selection, and then I won't copy over the rest. If I want to keep everything because it's a commercial shoot, or I just want to make sure I've got everything for the client because I think in the future they might come back and request certain bits and pieces, or while we're going through the final stages of a project they might want certain bits and pieces that I then don't present to them straight away, then I'll move everything over. But what you need to bear in mind is if you're moving everything over, if you're shooting 64, 70 gigabytes every time you go out and do something, then you're going to have, and you're working on the volume that I work, and I've probably shot maybe 10 to 15 shoots in the last 3 weeks. That's 700 gigabytes of images. If you're going to put all of that onto hard drives, you're going to be buying hard drives once a month. So in order to be cost effective for me, I will take out the ones that I want and just transfer those bits of data. The other way to do it is to transfer everything, go through your cull, get everything that you want, deliver it back to a client. Once the client's happy, then get rid of the RAWs or the JPEGs that you don't use, that aren't wanted, that aren't okayed on, and that will then save you space. But either way will really work. But for me, I'll take off what I think is right first, and then that's what I'm working with. And then I'll start to edit, blah, 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 blah. But I'll show you how I transfer data. It's going to be easier actually if we kind of do it another way. So just bear with me. So what we do is we have cards, and I will then split it out by year. So data comes off of those cards into, first of all, a nice little folder labelled 2019. From inside that folder, I've then got January, February, March folders, and then inside that I've then got a folder for every shoot that I do for that month. And the way I do them is, the way I name those folders is by date, what I would class as reverse date, and then the shoot name. So it will be 2019, today is the 26th. So 2019 03 26 dash shoot. And then it will be Loughborough Lightning versus Pulse or British Triathlon race, whatever, and I'll name them, and then each folder is named accordingly, like that. So I can always search by date if I can't remember what the folder name was, or I can't remember which month I've done it. I've never forgotten which month I've done it, but this is my fail-safe way of making sure that I've always got it in the right place. So data comes into a 2019 folder, breaks down by month, which then breaks down by shoot. If I'm shooting multiple things, so if I'm shooting on different cameras and I'm shooting, or I've done like video stuff, then inside that folder will also be oops, that's wrong. There'll be a folder for certain cameras. You can split it out for like location and stuff, and say this was location 1, this was location 2, but this bit here is the main bulk of the data that I do. Interlude. So I then do all the crazy edit stuff. Lots of lovely edits. Lots and lots of glossy images. And then when I'm exporting images out, they will go out into a folder which goes first of all directly onto my laptop, and that folder will have the same prefix as the one that it was into. So it will be 2019 03 26 shoot, and this is stored on different locations. So all the raws, all of the stuff from before goes onto a separate hard drive. So that's a separate non-internal hard drive, that's external, and I chop and change those depending what year it is, and yeah, that's what I do for that. This stuff will then 9 times out of 10 go directly onto my laptop, and then we'll get directly backed up into Creative Cloud on Lightroom, and also then we'll go out onto a second hard drive which is just for my finalized images. So that's getting saved with this prefix, and then each file name also carries the same prefix. And then I just tell Lightroom to put on the end of that the file number, and I'll always start from 1. So if the image that gets saved is image 375, but it's the first one that gets edited and it's the first one of the set, it will come out as 001, and Lightroom will sort all that for me. So that's what the file names then come out at. So those files then go onto my laptop. This is a picture of my laptop with all the keys. Not very good at drawing. And it will go onto an external drive. External hard drive, so it's in 2 places. What then happens periodically is I will take the raws, I'll take the raw folder for the month. So I will take the March folder, and that will get further backed up onto my network storage drive. So there's redundancy all over the place. This runs in RAID 0, which basically means that it's backing up onto 2 hard drives simultaneously, just like it would do on the camera. So if one of those hard drives fails, I've got another hard drive to back it up. But there's always points where everything's in more than one place at one time. And all of this stuff is also on Creative Cloud, or Creative Sun as that is. So I'm getting exported images in Creative Cloud, in Lightroom. I'm also getting them on my hard drive for easy access straight away if I need to, and then onto an external drive. And then all the raw files from that month, once that month is done, get put back on. And because it's raw files and because that's how I'm editing, then what happens is all the XMP data, all the editing data basically in Lightroom stays with that file. So if I move it around, all I need to do is just change the locations and then away we go. So that's my data flow. That's how I work it. Yeah. And that's how I move data around after every shoot. Basically, after everything I do, my cat's just lobbed itself onto the top of my door. That's how I do my data transfer. That's how I move images around. That's how I keep my data backed up at all times and in both locations. One thing I didn't mention when I was going through from the overhead was that when I've done a shoot and everything's stored on hard drives and stuff ready to go, then I will clear my cards. Or if I just want to make sure everything's okay and I know I'm going to be editing relatively quickly, I'll leave the cards full of data until everything's done, exported out, sent back to the client. And I know everything's backed up on all the hard drives that it needs to be, and then I'll clear cards. Always make sure that you, whenever possible, are building in like a double redundancy. Like if it's not in one place, it'll be somewhere else, or if you lose it in one place, it will be somewhere else. Because part of being a professional photographer, professional sports photographers, you can't just ask clients to redo stuff. You know, you can't turn up for a big event or a big race and be like, oh yeah, well I missed that shot, can we do it again? That's not how it works. Or, you know, or I got that shot but my card's broke, so can we just set up again? It's not how that just starts to look unprofessional. You know, people will Posty delivering Lego, just regular Tuesday occurrence. That's how I move my data around. Hopefully you found it useful. Hopefully you've learned a little bit of something from it. It's important to have that double redundancy in there. You can't often get away with having a mistake of losing stuff. Clients will forgive it every now and again, and you know, everybody's human, but you can't be constantly losing stuff. So having a really good digital data workflow is dead important. So hopefully you've learned something from it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, smash it if that's something that applies to you. Hit subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. It means an awful lot to me if you do. Hit me up on the social channels below. Feel free to ask any questions you want. Have a very wicked day, and I'll see you all very, very soon, all being well.